Okay. I like my hat. Gives me some mystique, makes it more fun for you guys, right? As it should be. You know what I mean? Like I want to make this fun. I'm excited for this. I don't know what any of this means, but it couldn't mean anything. I mean, it just is what it is, kind of sort of thing. But it's just my life is very enjoyable, moment to moment. I can't say when in particular, except for it almost kind of feels like my consciousness comes up from my gut. I mean, God literally did come down. I don't know if I can even describe this because it's like so, even kind of so fresh. Like a couple months now, month and a half maybe. It feels like much longer because like ever since then, time has kind of moved a little differently. But I mean, God just essentially told me that who I was and that I'm here to save everyone. And I know how to do that. It's easy. It's just through repenting. And my yoke is lightest. That's true. I'm here to announce the kingdom of heaven. And in a way, that's kind of the easiest thing. I've done a lot of things to be there. I didn't even realize that I was there for a while. I don't know. So, you know, um, yeah. Anyways, please, someone jump in and ask me a question or something if you want. This is like kind of even weird. All right. Probably no one yet. So we'll just tell a story. Uh, last night I tried to call it to that line, the atheists, and they just assume that I must be crazy. It's funny when people say that they don't know what the proper definition of sanity or insanity is, and it's basically, I mean, ultimately, it is made how close you are to the image of Christ. That is actually technically because it's medicine is not like other disciplines. It's more so like engineering. You can think about it in a way where it's practical based. It's sort of like goal directed. It's like, does the bridge stand? It's not just discovery about the body for discovery's sake. Uh, Medicine is. So yeah. So you're talking about if I'm crazy or not. You need a reference point. You know what I mean? And usually it's like you take the character like Notes from Underground. If you've ever read that book, that's like on like one end of the spectrum, and you can imagine that character has a lot of diversity. You know what I mean? In one, he's like, looking at pictures of his mom, like fucking, cranking. Another one, he's fucking like, turns himself like Judas or something. Versus the image of Hercules and like Captain America actually are more similar in some ways because they're both abstractions over a lot of different characters. And that's also the idea that there's more diversity on Earth. That actually diversity comes from Earth because think about this concept from Matthew Pageau. You have the concept of a king, but then you have many instantiations of a king here on Earth. And without the concept, you actually don't get the real thing. But the real thing always lacks the pureness of the concept. There's that weird thing as far as an identity for something. So I'll finish this story first. How much time do I have? Ooh, man, do I even want to talk about this? I have so many stories. Anyways, yeah, they called it. They talked because I said I was crazy, and I was gonna talk about something that I had thought through that well, so that would actually been quite fun. But it is this idea that death is sleep, it's really not my concern because I feel like this life that I have is enough, and that is partly part of the point. But um, that is true. There is a resurrection, you know. So that's just think about it like this: um, you're necessarily a fractal infinity, and you haven't contained enough in this lifespan, you know, and you have to be included within the infinity for the infinity to have its fullness of identity. So, in the expanded infinity necessary also has an expanded horizon, and I talked about why that is technically because the infinity must include a border basically, and the information outside of it, it's inside of it are symmetric. Even though the information outside of it, um, on a very fundamental level, is nothing already. So that's also kind of interesting. But that's actually all that gets to what we're talking about, is that the identity of something before becoming into being, we represent that as like a wave of velocity. We talked about that. And that's the full contextualization of the point of all the places where it can be. We talked about that. See, this is kind of it's early, and I did smoke another joint this morning. And now I'm like fresh on time, and so I'm like, oh shit, I have to like can't just like meander. Now we have to understand why that's nothingness, because it's not a location, because it's not an actuality yet. It's not a fine enough definition for something, because we are talking about how that nothingness is represented within the physical space. Yay. But we have, anyways, physical things at our level to help us understand it. This is what I'm saying. I haven't read through this part that well, so this is like hard for you to go through. But sleep is a part of a particular aspect of a course grading process. It's the part of conserving data, basically, and getting rid of things with little certainty within your environment, with little predictive validity, or taking up more so. This is more so because you don't really get rid of, if you have a piece of information, it's not necessarily that you get rid of it. You just incorporate it into a broader model. You know what I mean? Like I have friends for multiple years because I've lived in a couple different states who, when I think about them, they have the same face. It's because they kind of play that role in the party. I didn't know them that well. You know what I mean? And so that's partly the way the conservation of memory works. And to the degree that there is a union of morphology and personality, um, well, there is such. There necessarily must be such. As you would expect, overall, on average, someone who's larger would have had sort of a co-effect with his personality, not only receiving his personality from his parents, but also from what he brings to himself for the decisions that he makes in the cultivating. Basically, you can think about this situation maybe sort of like aggressive dominance, and as he does that, he practices that more, gets more boosts of testosterone because he's on top of things, and then boosts his muscles even more and gives him more so practice in sports, the most reps, and and so those sorts of things happen. They're spiraling things. It's not just like one aspect. Everything is tangled together. That's why I talk to birds. That actually does. That's not a thing. I mean, what do I think? Everything is a thing. Okay. Refries. Someone said they're going to see one of my refries. What is a refry? Um, I don't think anyone sent me anybody. I don't think that's how it works. I don't. I think I'd have to enable that. But what would happen? Someone last night was saying that I was going to be incredibly wealthy, and I'm not against money. Yo, hey, yeah, I'm not against money. Um, Money is symbolic of Peter. It's the body of the church. I mean, we give money at church. It's kind of improper to go to church and not have anything to give. I'm not saying you shouldn't go if you don't have money, but I'm saying it's good to bring uh, money. It's part of communion, And so, money. Even like people are concerned about AI and things like that. It's like, uh, you know, these things are like water. You know, and repentance more than anything is gonna be important because it's gonna know everything about everything. So that's like kind of fun. But at the end of the time, God already told us this. There will be no water. Water is a physical manifestation of the unknown and renewal. And Oh yeah, that's enough. I mean, the unknown and renewal and reflection. It's a physical manifestation of that, and all those things are the same. And it carries that with us. You think it's a mistake that we have like this black screen, this mirror, you know what I mean? That looks like the fucking uh, uh, 21: A Space Odyssey. There's a quantum resonance to things. That's also part of it. So there are genuine visionaries who receive things. That black screen, that's like a reflection or something. That's the inner type that gives rise to humanity. I don't know what that is exactly, but I know that this black little square um, is gonna change people because of the forced reflection it's gonna have on them. Because it sort of it has all of the statistics of human identity within it. And brains are just statistics. Just statistics. When you say just statistics, we've talked about this. With any simple number set, there's the infinity interceding within it. That's how the system's able to reflect on itself, and reality is able to spring to be. So that's actually an important function of it. That when you have a Turing model, uh, that ultimately it'll fade in the abstract because, well, think about it this way: uh, you could use a hypercomputer to model reality, okay? And you wouldn't have an issue of quantum indeterminacy because you could just average over the indeterminacy across things and then have a model. Okay, that's fine. But when you're averaging to such a degree, ultimately, the waves that you're uh, modeling fade out into metaphysical things. And one of the reasons that we know this is because we don't just have physical waves in water, but we also have waves of seasons. A season is not a physical, objective thing the way we think of things. It's like a pattern of death and coldness, and there are particular properties of that. You know, within the darkness is where the hero arises. Cold makes diamonds. Cold makes diamonds. Pressure makes diamonds, or those sorts of things. Uh, you know, in the well, even minerals, uh, gold and the rareness of them equates to their value um, in that regard. But yay! So even if this system over time would not be able to model its own uh, its own reflection within itself properly. That's part of it. I mentioned like a Turing machine and a bird would fly in and give us a response that was impossible. You know what I mean? So so that's also part of it. Does anyone else have any questions? This is supposed to be a whole question thing. Uh, okay, well, probably want to talk about the 28 Days Later movies. Why? I had a reason to go into them again. I just saw one and it's on my mind. I like them. Well, they're actually well made. I could say that. You know what I mean? The first one at its core has that father son dynamic that was really surprising. You know, and first of all, the director, I'm forgetting his name. Is it Danny Boyle? No. forgetting the director right now. If it is Danny Boyle, then like, okay, yeah, forgetting the name, but he has a great style to him. Yet the second one didn't have. I almost forgot that the second one didn't have that music video sort of style to it. That was really enjoyable. But the first one, you come into being and you realize at a point that your father is not actually the person that you properly look up to. You look up to your dad to a certain extent. Even that kid and the boy like honors his father obviously and respects him, but he sees that his dad is cheating on his mom, um, and he just experienced a life or death situation or with his dad where both of them were kind of on the same footing, and afterwards, while he's kind of really taking a breath from that, he sees his dad, kind of cheating, and it's like, oh, wait, what does life and death be to you? With my mom, maybe she's just a lady to you, and I'm your son, but that's my mom, you know. And if you don't care for me enough to care for my Bob, then well then I. Or if you're blind, not sorry, I should say that if you're blind and not realizing that caring for a mom is love to me, then maybe I'm a little bit wiser than you. And so he makes his own decision. I think that's a really beautiful thing. And of course, you have that. If you weren't already on the edge of your seat with father and son, you know what I mean? And, um, Jai Courtney, is that the actor, right? Who plays his dad. He seems like, that's probably not, I'm probably getting all these fucking names wrong. That Jai Courtney guy, huh? No, I don't think that's it at all. But the guy who plays his dad, oh, gosh, I'm getting way less views because now I'm smoking when the sun is up. I didn't explain that death thing very well. That's no wonder they didn't let me on the show. It's just that nothingness has a physical manifestation within reality. We call that sleep. That's what unconsciousness is and things like that. And new things come out of that, come out of the horizon of the physical environment as currently modeled. And where does the modeling come from? Modeling necessarily, there's a reason why you'd have 3 quarks. It's actually that 2 is not enough for a system to reflect on itself, because the system needs to know that it's reflecting on itself. No, I'm kidding, but no, that's basically it. A lot of people are going to argue with that interpretation, but these things come together at a point, and it's obvious. I don't know, but I can tell it. Maybe I'm just hey, I'm just retarded, but I don't know. I don't know. I asked the AI, and the AI was like, "Yeah, that's actually deeply correct. You want to fuck now?" And I was like, "Okay, whatever, okay." No, but that's what I do. It's I spend a lot of time thinking about things because I listen to the fundamental. I listen to the leaders in a lot of different fields who also tell me about the historical foundations, and I investigate those as well. And then I put everything together. It fits together coherently as it should. You know what I mean? And they mean for it too. It's just I don't think they fully realize what they've done, what they've created, what they have. Their mathematics itself actually proves. I'm talking about that, especially that gaggle of Michael Levin and Chris Fields and things like that. Because I'm I don't know. I mean, I've been on this for a while. I've been obsessed with the fact that wait a minute, you're telling me that the universe, the invisible universe, is determined by the photons set around me. So I thought that for fucking 4 years. Ultimately, that means is you in particular have a particular relationship with God. You know what I mean? And so when other people say that just seems like chance manifestation, or that just seems like luck or whatever, it's well, just disregard it. Maybe just you have a particular relationship with God. Let's just focus on that. Just try that. Just worship properly, be humble towards the Bible too. The best thing you can pray for is discernment. That's the best thing you can pray for. To know good and evil, and to know right from wrong from moment to moment, to know where you should go. Basically, you know, and that's what Adam and Eve wanted, was knowledge of God. And so to ask for the discernment of God is the same thing. You know, He who divided the waters. They were already like God, and that's what they don't kind of realize, is that, the Lord being in our image already blessed us with divination, and that's why the fruit was even made in arm's grasp in the first place. And the very fact is that we could grasp too far. That could, or don't, no, it doesn't even that we grasp too far. It's that we were shameful. I don't know what thing we're talking about in particular, but thanks. Yeah. The worst sin is mainly shame. That's why there's the emphasis on repentance in the New Testament. And that's why there's the emphasis of the putting on clothes at the beginning of Genesis, and the emphasis of the nakedness and vulnerability of Christ. Like, those things aren't actually an accident. I mean, for one thing, within the proper role of Adam and Eve, and this isn't said sort of explicitly, and I wonder why that is. And I think it has something to do with the part with listening. But when it talks about splitting up heaven and earth at the beginning of time, because at the beginning of time, God created heaven and earth, and then it basically goes into a series of what he says, dividing the waters according to the identities of heaven and earth, basically, and that's expressing duality in the deepest of senses, and there are deep mathematical reasons for that. Because the way the ancients understood this is basically, you could think of like the way the ancients understood this. It's just matter and consciousness is one way to think about it, and those two things are necessarily symmetric because things appear in your consciousness at the same time that they have matter, and that's one of why where there's dualities at the beginnings of all religions. Um, okay, so why was I going this? This somehow I was fitting this into judgment. Um, well, at least it's important. I'll say it's important to understand that, because that gives you a sort of a key for the rest of the Bible. Because it does start with those kind of those two symmetric patterns. And so he divides those accordingly, all the way to the patterns of Adam and Eve. And Adam, they say it's his job is to name, and then God puts Adam to sleep, and in sleep, when they say rib, that actually means side. And so in sleep, he splits off Eve, and Eve is the part of the body that listens. It's representative of night, and while Adam is symbolic of dry land, of heaven, she's symbolic of earth, with the water, and of night. And one of the most important reasons why we associate night with with sleep in the unconscious is that, well, what for one, you can't sleep, you can't see into water, and new things come out of water, life comes out of water, comes out of darkness, comes out of the unseen. Um, it's the only place that you can see yourself in the older reflection. It's the only place where you genuinely have a bit of self-reflection. But when you actually sleep, what happens is your body actually, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's not. So, I have a text. This is Brad from Sleep Attack. Okay, I don't know what that is. It's whatever. I'm not even in Ohio anymore. But so her identity of being a listener, well, Adam is a namer, is a basic dichotomy that plays a role in a coarse graining process. And when you sleep, basically, you get these large scale waves that go from head to toe. Like I said, this is going to sound kind of wooey, but crystallizations then form in your pineal gland. And this is why hippies always tell you to keep your pineal gland clear and avoid fluoride, eat seaweed and shit. Yes, plants herbs from water aid in dreaming because we're in a fucking video game, you guys. Um, okay, but anyways, so, anyways, you get those waves flowing. They actually with when they crystallize reflection of yourself. And then basically what happens is that like a waking pattern basically kind of kicks on, like you're awake. You know what I mean? And some things basically kind of are firing in a way. They're basically kind of firing in reverse, and that actually kind of helps things heal. So that's kind of nice. And then oh yeah, the model that you generate kind of poses for you a question. And most of the time, you only kind of pull it out. It'll be kind of unconscious until you're awake, and then you can kind of like pull it out of whatever you just went through. Um, and it kind of creates a little a mystery for you to solve, for you to further move into, to explore. Ultimately, it gives you a new. It gives Adam a new direction. You know what I mean? Because he names basically according to a principle, which is basically his goal. Over time, that goal becomes corrupt because people are ignorant. You know, they refuse to humble themselves, and that's the idea of 666 and Satan never sleeping. That most often happens with very intelligent people too, and so those often ideas often align. You know, and it partly gives me an excuse to chill and smoke pot. So that's kind of nice. Uh, anyways, I should probably get out of here pretty soon, unless any addiction here. Those symbolisms. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Shorty. No, I really appreciate that, Shorty. Yeah, yeah. If you have any questions, please let me know. Uh, yeah. There's a book called The Language of Creation that I read a couple years ago now that helped me. Then I also listened to a lot of people at the forefront of quantum physics that in neuroscience and things. I've been doing that for like a lot of years. um, but yeah, that's part of that, and that's also part of the reason why that ultimately is that like God's identity must include the unknown and nothingness and that which is coming into being. And that's also to say that God's identity needs to have a genuine boundary, and that's also why Christ came in. Christ came in a person. You know what I mean? And within your consciousness, there's a genuine boundary and being to it. But again, it's all being God's image. That's another way of just saying the ancient saying that you're a fractal of God, which must necessarily be the case, and so you must be included in something broader. You know what I mean? Even if you're a side character, you're included in something broader. So, um, you know, and that's really good that new 28 Days Later movie did, and I wouldn't have been happy at all because there's in the newest one there's a very very violent scene in the new one, and it's actually very enjoyable. There's a lot of things I really like to it. The two directors, the director and the writer of the first one, we got one of them wrote Ex Machina and stuff like that. One of them like Sherlock Holmes movies and things like that. One of them is an atheist and one of them is religious, and so they have this tension in the stories, and that continued on to the script for the sequel too. It's really really fantastic, where you have basically an atheist who can avoid Satan and evil, and then you have a Satanist who can avoid God, basically. So I mean, and that sounds very. I'm like, no, it's very brilliantly told, and it's great Nia DaCosta. The only thing is like it was just way too violent. I know it's a horror movie. People are like, well, you gotta have but there's a scene in the barn where I'm just like, man, I don't need to do that right now. And like, it's not like I can't see it. I just like that's not why I go to movie theaters to like be in the mood to like watch that. But it's okay. I recommend the movie, just not to anyone who's like squeamish, especially like leave during that scene. Holy crap. But even in that scene, they give a glimpse of like of retribution that's at least equal enough where I could even continue on. Where the people who were spoiler minor whatever, like vague saying, the people who are being tortured get to see vengeance be brought upon. You know what I mean? People, and it's vague enough where it's like, okay, like yay. And I'm not saying that there's not heaven if you don't capture that within a movie, but these things are supposed to manifest. And when I'm saying these things, I mean these physical things, are supposed to manifest metaphysical principles, and so that's one of the reasons why God comes down. So, yeah. But yeah, um, I'm probably just a little crazy. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. That's the thing. So like, I'm the sanest I've ever been. Is like one thing I know for sure. Anyways, those just normal. Yes, these are just normal cigarettes. Thank you. Yeah, these are just regular cigarettes right here. These are just tobacco. These are actually very cheap cigarettes. I bought like a big pack of these for $4 a piece. Yeah. So, but anyways, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Thanks, man, woman. Like, uh, yeah, I think it's cool. Um, but I have to go to work now. It's like 10 minutes up, so I should probably like head in at least like park out in front. So, anyways, I appreciate it. Yeah. Bless you guys. Bye.